Let's venture into a new frontier. Let's take a look at World Gen. Alright, we found ourselves back in IntelliJ once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be creating a tree, and we're also going to generate it into the world. I know, absolute craziness, but absolutely no worries, because this actually is not as complicated as you might think. It actually is fairly straightforward. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into our mod blocks class right here, and we're going to create number one, the leaves, and number two, the sapling. Now the sapling is going to be the thing that is, well, probably the most complicated among this, but I will explain as we go along. So first of all, let's copy the redwood planks just twice, and we're going to make the leaves first of all right here, and then here as well, leaves. There you go. And this is of course now a leaves block. And this is going to copy from the oak leaves. Pretty straightforward, nothing too spectacular. We're actually going to immediately, let's first of all make everything here, and then we're going to worry about the JSON files in just a moment. So for the sapling, first of all, we're going to say redwood sapling right here, and this of course as well, redwood sapling. So there you go. And this is going to be a sapling block. However, we can't use the sapling block once again, so we actually need to make a custom block for this. So in our custom package, right-click new Java class for the mod sapling block. And this is actually going to extend the sapling block. And we're going to hover over this, create constructor matching super, making sure that this is set to public here. And that's literally all that we need to do once again for the mod sapling block. And for every new tree or every new sapling you make, you do not have to recreate this. You have to create this class once, and then you can call new mod sapling block every time you create a new sapling, basically. And this one actually requires something interesting, and that this requires if you see this, a sapling generator. So we actually need to create this as well, and we're going to create this in another package. So instead of a tutorial mod package, right-click new package called world. So we're going to the world now, and inside of there, we're going to create a new package called features, and inside of there, we're going to create a new package called tree. Because I feel like, saving this under the tree makes sense, because it's, a sapling. And this is going to be the mod sapling generator. And this one will look kind of like this. So this one actually extends the sapling generator right here. And we're going to hover over this as well. So we need to, as you can see, override the get tree feature, which we're going to fill in just a moment. And the way we're going to fill this is we're going to say private final configured feature of type tree feature config ? And this is going to be the feature, and we're going to pass this in the constructor public mod sapling block configured feature here of ? Very important, called feature, and then we're just going to say this dot feature equals the feature, and then we have to cast this into the configured feature of tree feature config ? Right there. So that would be it, and then we can basically put this in here, and this should be pretty much it. Now, this is just the case because this is there you go. So this is, of course, not the mod sapling block, but the mod sapling generator. That's why the arrow is there. And now this all works totally fine. Now, this one, of course, requires the configured feature here, which we don't have yet. So even if we were to make a new one right here, it doesn't really get us anywhere because we don't have the configured feature. Well, no worries. Inside our feature package, right-click new Java class mod configured features. And this is going to be a class that is going to be sort of our best friend when it comes to world generation, because in here we're basically going to register everything that has to do with the world generation. The first thing that we need to do is we need to say public static void and then register the configured features. And here I'm actually going to copy this over once again. It actually says mod blocks. That's kind of funny. Mod configured features, right, for the tutorial mod class or the tutorial mod. And we need two register methods right here. So we can make both of those private static configured feature of type ? Which is going to be the register method. Register. And this is the configured feature ? Which we're going to pass in. So called configured feature. And we're going to return the registry.register with the built-in registries. So built-in registries.configured feature. Very important here. And then we need to actually pass in a particular key. So we actually need to pass in a key. So this would be a registry key of type configured feature question mark. So this is going to be very long here. No worries. This is the key. Call it like this. Let's make this. There you go. E.getValue. And then at the end here, a configured feature. So you can see that we need a configured feature and a key as well. And for the key, we basically also need a register method. So we need a private static registry key configured feature question mark. This is the registry key method with a string name. So this literally only has a name. And this is going to return the registry key dot of registry dot configured feature key with a new identifier called tutorial mod ID, and the name we're passing in here. So now we have basically both of the things that we need. So let's first of all talk a little bit about, okay, configured feature. What is that even? Well, a configured feature is basically a feature that is configured. Now, everyone's going to say, well, no S, Sherlock. That makes sense. Well, let's actually take a look. So you can see that in the configured features class, there are a lot of configured features. So let's just go into it. So this is the, actually, I wanted to go into the configured features class. So right here, there you go. So the configured features class has pretty much all of the configured features. You can see there's like sugar canes, you know, how gold ore and stuff like that spawns. And we actually want to see something for the tree. So let's just look for oak. So you can see oak, for example, if I middle mouse button click on this down here. So here we have the registration, and then you can see the feature config, and then here we have the configuration. Now you can see this is very long. And for some, it's even longer. It keeps going. There you go. So overall, the world gen is I wouldn't necessarily say a mess, but it is insanely complicated. So especially if you want something very specific, I want this to be exactly like this. It's gonna be a lot. For the time being, we're just gonna create a normal tree here, and for that, every configured feature we're making, we need a registry key. So we're gonna make a public static final registry key of type configured feature question mark. This is gonna be the redwood underscore tree underscore key, and this is gonna be equal to register key with the name redwood. So this is one thing that we need for every configured feature we're going to make. So in the future, when we are also, for example, going to make the Ruby ore and stuff like that, we definitely want this as well. So that's very important. So then next thing, what I want is I want a public static final, and this is going to be the configured feature here, question mark, called the redwood underscore tree, and this is equal to the register method. So this register method right here, where we're going to now create the configured feature. First of all, this is going to be feature.tree, all written in caps, .configure with a new tree feature config .builder, actually without the parentheses here, because we want to create a new builder, and inside of it we're going to be placing the following: a new simple block state provider, modblocks.redwoodLog. So this get default state. So this specifies the first parameter here in the builder, specifies what is going to be the trunk. So this is sort of the trunk block state provider. If I were to, for example, say this would be diamond, then of course, all of a sudden we would have trees that have diamonds as their trunks. So the log here is specified. And then here we have in this case, a straight trunk placer. Let's just say something like 8, 4, and 3. So this just specifies the height. So this is the normal height. And then these are two randoms that are placed here. You can also see if I middle mouse button click on the trunk placer, there's different trunk placers. So I can press Control H here, and you can see there's a forking trunk placer, large, dark, oak. There's even giant ones, mega, bending. So there's a lot of different trunk placers. You can also make your own, but that of course gets even more complicated at that point. That especially at this point, we're not going to venture into that. Then the next thing is going to be the leaves. So this is once again a simple block state provider. This is going to be the modblocks.redwoodLeaves.get default state. And then we get to the sapling. This is also a simple block state provider, actually. So new simple block state provider. Nope, simple block state provider. There you go. This is modblocks.sapling. Actually, yes, that default state. And then we have a blob foliage placer in our case. So I'm going to show this as well. So this is the blob foliage placer with the following: a constant int provider create 2, a constant int provider create 0, just for the time being, and a height of 3. So this is going to be, this is the radius, the first one. The second one is the offset from the trunk. So how far away or how, up or down this actually is from the trunk. And then the height is just the height of the foliage. Once again, in the foliage placers, we can see there's some stuff in here. Foliage placers basically places the leaves, right? So it places the leaves that we've defined right here and places them in a particular manner. And then we also want to have a 2-layer feature size, 101. We're just going to put this in. And this is something I'm not 100% sure about what this does. Like I said, this is very complicated. I believe that it's something like it looks at, it limits sort of how far away it can be from other blocks, something like that. But I'm also not 100% sure. And we're going to add another parentheses here to close the builder here. And then we're going to say .build. Sorry, there you go, .build. And then close another one, making the configured here done. And now we want to add how this spawns. Okay, so now we're going to say .decorated. And here we have to basically add a configured decorator. So the decoration here is how is this going to spawn. So the first thing here is basically how is the actual tree going to look, and now how is it going to spawn in the world. So we're going to say the decorator .heightmap .configure with a new height map decoration configuration, height map type, and we're going to say motion blocking. And then afterwards, we're going to say spread horizontally, apply chance 3. And then we should be done after we're adding one more parenthesis here, actually. And then one more. And then at the end, oh, that's decorate. Sorry, that's not actually quite right. This should apply chance. And then after we're done here, we want to add the redwood tree key at the very end. And now we have no more errors. That's very good. This code is, of course, available to you in the description below, GitHub repository, or individual gists as well. And the cool thing about this is that the actual thing here is, of course, as you can see, insanely configurable. That's pretty cool, right? We can change this. We can change, hey, this is a straight trunk placer. Is this a different type of trunk placer? What type of blocks should we make? We can also take a look at not the registry key, but the actual block state provider. There's different type of block state providers. As you can see, you can have weighted ones. You can even have randomized block states providers. So that means that, for example, if you were to use the weighted block state provider, you could add multiple different block states, meaning multiple different blocks, and then it would take those on a particular weight. So for example, you could have 2 different types of logs, right? And then you could just say, hey, make a weighted one. And the one of them is like absolutely like way more like weighted, so like 100, and the other one has 1. So the other one then has sort of a 1% chance to even appear, but that could be kind of cool. So that's a sort of, this is just a template. This is just a configuration, one possible configuration. I will, however, admit that it definitely is very complicated, and you will have to just try out a bunch of stuff and just try to learn by doing, basically. It's the smartest idea here. And this right here basically is, you're basically saying 1 over whatever this says. So, and this is then the chance that it has to generate per chunk. So that's the idea here. The decorator here, I'm also not 100% sure. This is the one I've used, and this is the one that has gotten me the best result, basically. You can always go back to the ConfiguredFeatures class, right? This one right here. So double shift and then type this in. And you can always take a look at how the vanilla ones are generated. So while this is a lot, right, you can always take a look. So you can see, for example, this one here doesn't actually have any generation in here because this is actually used. So the oak one right here, this one, oh, sorry, there you go, is actually used in the right here. So we're actually creating the actual generation down here. So for example, let's just say here the dark forest vegetation brown or forest flower tree. So you can see there's a bunch of stuff, birch other. So you can then see that here it is registered with a random selector. So like there's a lot of stuff that you can do here. Like I already said, the best place really is the ConfiguredFeatures class to take a look at probably almost everything, how everything here is done. Because here it almost has, well, everything that you need to see how vanilla spawns its stuff, how vanilla, generates stuff in the world. So definitely take a look at this. I know it might be a little intimidating. It might be quite a bit. So at this point, I'm once again telling you, really, like, look at Java. Like, if you are like, this is insane, I can understand. If you don't understand Java, then this is pretty much just, I mean, this is a language you don't understand, right? And so This is why I'm keep telling you this. It's very important. Right, now we have this configured feature registered here, and everything is fine. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to call this register configured features method in our tutorial mod class. And we want to call this pretty much at the very top. So mod configured features .register configured features. Otherwise, this is not going to work. Now we can finally go into the mod blocks class and finally finish our sapling. Wow, it has been quite a while. Now what we can do is we can say as the first parameter a new mod sapling generator, and then pass in the mod configured features .redwood tree, comma, and there you go. Now this is done, and this should then work. Now, before we actually generate everything, let's add the JSON files for the leaves and the saplings, or the one sapling rather. So this is going to be the redwood leaves and the redwood sapling for the block states. Those are of course also available to you. They're both just normal block states JSON files, so nothing too crazy. Let's also add the translation immediately, just so that I don't forget this, because this is always something I do forget. Once again, nothing too crazy here with the translation, should be fairly self-explanatory. Then we have the sapling and the leaves. So this is the block models. So we can see that the sapling actually has the cross parent and a texture cross. Nothing too crazy. This is the same that we've seen with the bluebells. They're displayed pretty much the same. And then the redwood leaves have textures all, so all totally fine. And then for the item models, they are also just normal item models. Nothing to see here, except for in the sapling, actually. Oh, except for in the sapling, that's actually an interesting one. As the sapling one, when we take a look at this, you can see actually it points to the block texture, because of course the redwood sapling in your hand sort of looks pretty much exactly the same like the actual displayed block. So why would you add two different textures that are the same? Doesn't really make sense. So this is why it points to the block texture. And then the leaves and the sapling, let's add those in the block textures as well. And then, because we shouldn't forget this, both the leaves and the sapling have alpha values. Therefore, what do we need to do? Well, of course, we've already made them from the... Also, this is the planks. That's not quite right, of course, right? This needs to be the oak sapling right here. Totally fine. And now the actual block settings are taken, so we don't need to call the no non-opaque or no collision on our own. This is actually already done for us. What we do need to, however, add are the render layer. So this is inside of our mod render helper here. We actually want to add this. So let's just copy the bluebells and let's just say redwood sapling and then also the redwood leaves. There you go. So those two have to be called here as well. And then that is going to be fine. Now the blocks are done. These two, the actual feature is done. In theory, when I now put down the sapling, bone meal it should spawn the tree. However, we also want to spawn the tree in the world. And for that, we're going to create a new package inside of our world class or a world package. And that's going to be the gen package. So this is now all of the generators are going to go in there. We're going to say we have the mod tree generation. There you go. And then we're also going to have the, and I didn't quite know what to call this. This is the mod world gen. It's kind of weird. Actually, the actual name of the method that we're going to create there is kind of weird, but that's okay. So the mod tree generation, we only need this class once. So all of our trees, however many trees we're going to create, we're all going to create in this class a public static void called generate trees. Okay, interesting. Right, and everything is going to happen, everything interesting is going to happen in here. And this is actually fairly straightforward. We're going to say biome modification, this guy, dot, modifications actually, dot add feature. And then we're going to say biome selectors, there you go, found in overworld. So this is going to add our tree to every biome in the overworld. Okay, fair enough. Generation step, which is going to be the vegetal decoration here. And then we're going to say mod configured features dot redwood tree key. This is why we had to have the key as well, because we actually have to pass in the key. Now, what's very important is you can see that this is sort of, strike through. You can see this is deprecated. Okay, fair enough. Let's go in here. You can see this is an experimental feature and may be removed or changed without further notice. So that's very important to note that it might, at the point you are watching this, when you have a newer version of Fabric, for example, this might not be in there. Then I'm very sorry. This, of course, doesn't work. There has to be another way to do this then, but for the time being, we're going to use this. Just be aware of it, that, and keep it in the back of your mind that this might change. These classes might be removed at some point. Just keep that in mind. So I'm currently using, just so that you can basically follow this in its entirety, I'm currently using the Fabric version 40.1 for 117. So in the future, this might change. Once again, I just wanted to really, keep this in mind. This might be different when you watch this in the future. But whatever the case may be, we're going to take this for the time being. And inside of our mod world gen class, we're now going to create a new static method as well. So public static void, and this is going to be the generate mod world gen. So like I said, this is like a kind of a weird name here, but that's okay. And we're going to say mod tree generation dot generate trees. And now this is going to be called in the tutorial mod class at the very bottom. So right here, we're going to just say mod world gen dot generate mod world gen. And this is it. Now it's going to work. So to sort of summarize, this adds the tree to the world generation. The key is just the key inside of the sort of the registry. The configured feature is the configuration of this feature that we're basically adding. The sapling is the sapling. The mod sapling generator generates the tree out of a sapling, meaning that when we place down a sapling, we also need this configured feature, and that then spawns the actual tree. Because of course, when we go back into our mod configured features, everything basically here, right? Everything here without the .decorate is just basically telling it how does the tree look. This doesn't tell us anything about how the tree spawns, how often would this tree spawn, in what biomes does the tree spawn. None of that. That doesn't matter here in this case with this feature. Only once we add this .decorated are we actually adding some sort of world gen ideas to this configured feature. So that's sort of the idea. And then last but not least, I can also always tell, go into the configured features class, look at the examples that Vanilla has provided you. It's probably going to be the best thing that you can do at all, like genuinely the best thing. If you can't access this, by the way, you can always go into the Gradle up here. And I believe this is under other. There is it's actually here, gen sources, download assets. So this generates the sources basically so that you can actually take a look at this. Sometimes that has not run through in the beginning. So that's also something that's kind of important. Otherwise, this is available to you. And I highly recommend taking a look at this because this is going to save you a lot of headache, really. Even though it is still complicated, it's better to have some examples. Right, but now, all of the prelude, all of the stuff is fine and said. Now, let's actually see if our trees spawn in the world. Right, and don't forget to create a new world for this because, of course, we messed with the world gen, so a new world here makes a lot of sense. Alright, we found ourselves back in Minecraft, and there you go. There are the trees already spawned here, and the first thing that you will notice is that the leaves starting to decay. Well, that is very strange, isn't it? Yes, that is something else that we are going to take a look at in just a moment. Overall, as you can clearly see, the trees spawn, no problem whatsoever. So maybe it's not enough for you, maybe it's too much. You can always tweak the numbers. That is something that I highly recommend you to just try out a bunch of values there. You're not going to break anything for the time being while you're in development. That is, just use this as your playground and play around with the numbers. And now let's see how we can fix those damn leaves. Right, so the leaves decaying is a thing that happens, well, from time to time, but we can, of course, fix this by adding some tags. So inside of the Minecraft tags blocks folder, we're going to create a new file called the leaves.json. So this is going to be the leaves. I'm actually going to copy this one over because, of course, this is a normal tag, and this is going to be the redwood_leaves. And then we're going to copy the leaves. We're going to basically drag it in here while holding the control key. And this is going to be the logs. And this is then, of course, the redwood_log. And then the logs will also do the planks as well. And this is the redwood underscore planks. And now when the tree spawns, the leaves will no longer decay. So this is something that is done in the trees. I can actually show you this as well. So inside of the leaves block, you can actually see that either it's looking for some persistent here or it's looking for a distance. So this is an int property, right? An integer property here. And it's basically looking for this distance, whether or not there is a certain distance from log, as you can see, and it actually looks for a block tags log, as you can see here. Distance from log, state. So is it, how far away is it from the state? Is this in the logs tag? And now we've added this to the logs tag, therefore it should all be fine. So that's pretty much all that there is to it. Hello, this is Kaupenjoe from the future to inform you that we have to make some modifications. So there actually a bug has snuck in to our program right here, and this, of course, cannot stand. So the bug is currently that when you sit down or you place down a sapling, then it actually does not generate a tree. Now, I have figured out why that is, and the reason is because when we make this configured feature right here, the redwood tree, we're immediately also giving it the decorated stuff, meaning that we're basically saying to the tree, hey, this is how you look, right? All the way until here. Totally fine. The tree feature config builder, totally okay. Everything's fine. And then we're like, okay, and this is how you spawn. And well, that just doesn't work. So that's sort of an issue here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy over the solution, so to speak, and I will quickly explain then. So the first thing that we're going to do is the registry key here. First of all, that was a typo. No worries. We're going to rename this. So this is the register key method, of course. Here, we're going to pass in the redwood underscore spawn, basically signifying that the key here is actually for the spawning of the tree. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to copy over this right here. This is going to throw a few errors. Don't worry about this. We're going to fix those in just a moment. And that's also amazing. Register key. There you go. Now it's finally fine. Okay. Register key. There you go. And the errors here are totally fine because we are using this method, which doesn't quite work. For our case, we actually need a second method that is specifically designed for the trees here. We could also call this register trees or register, tree features. Doesn't matter. However, this is what we need here. So a new method that returns a configured feature with tree feature config, and where we pass in a name. And here we're basically also, registering the configured feature, but under the name redwood. This is the tree itself. So this is how the tree spawns. And then we also have the tree spawn in the sense that how it generates in the world. We could maybe even call this redwood world gen or something like that, but that's going to be fine for the time being. And then we also now need the actual configured feature of how it spawns. I'll also copy that over. I called this redwood underscore tree underscore spawn. You pass in the configured feature of the redwood here, and then basically just add all of this stuff that you want to add here, then the key, and then that's pretty much it. So that's all of the things that we need to do in the mod configured features. We also have to go in the mod sapling generator, and I have to basically revisit something that I said, and that is this actually should not be called like this. So what we should do is actually rename this to the redwood sapling generator, because if we actually take a look at this, you can see that, the other trees basically also have their own sapling generators. So making this, trying to make this unique or not unique, let's say, it doesn't matter. We're going to do it like this. And then we can say mod configure features.redwood tree. So this is now the tree that actually spawns. And then when we middle mouse button click, we can see that this here in the mod blocks class is going to have an issue. We just are not going to pass anything into here. And then this is it. That's done. So it might look, a little bit, okay, it's a few things that have changed. Yeah, it's not that many when we really think about it. We've just added a new register method here that is specific for the trees. Then we've basically removed the decorated stuff and moved that into its own configured feature. And that's pretty much it. And just to prove that everything works now, let's see once again the actual bug fixed. All right, once again, let's create a new world and let's see if it works. Alright, we found ourselves in Minecraft, and as you can see, first of all, the trees have spawned successfully, so that's pretty good. And now the real question is, can I bone meal the sapling and will a tree spawn? And indeed, a tree spawns. And what we will also see is that if I just place them down a little bit here, something like this, and I'm gonna call the game rule random tick speed, 2000, then they will grow at some point as well. So as you can see, that all works now. This didn't work before, so that's a very important, addendum that I definitely wanted to add to this video here, to this tutorial. Otherwise, this bug definitely is not too good. Right, of course, when you look into the actual code, the GitHub repository and the individual gists, then the modified version is going to be available to you, so no worries there. So I hope that this was useful and you learned something new. If you did, I would very much appreciate a like. Don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials just like this one. So yeah.